I walk into this gym to go work out, and this guy literally told me, he came up to me, worked at the gym. He's like, "You look like shit." And I was like, "That's really rude." And he was like, "You should try cold showers and some breathing exercises." I was super reluctant, but I decided I'll give it a go. I didn't even work out that day. I went home, I took a cold shower. It was absolutely miserable, but I got out of the cold shower, and for the first time, as Jack Johnson says, "You wear your feet on." I felt like I was where my feet were. I felt so present in the moment. I couldn't explain it. My anxiety, the depression just started melting away, and I felt like I just started showing up better for the people and things I loved most.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by SIG SAUER. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Diefenderfer, host and CEO, and I'm so glad that you are here. We absolutely love seeing you dive into these episodes week after week. It is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single week that adds tools to that mindset toolbox, that mental toughness toolbox, that mental fitness toolbox. And thanks for making us one of the top mindset shows in the country. If you are a new or a loyal listener, it does mean the world to us to see your rankings and reviews come through. The rankings and reviews provide valuable feedback to me and our team. Additionally, through the algorithm, they allow these episodes to get out to more people to transform more lives. Shifting gears now to today's guest. On the show today, we have a good friend of ours and a sponsor of the Mountain Tough Podcast now. On the show today is the CEO and founder of Ice Barrel. I know many of you have dove in to cold plunging, cold water therapy. Personally, I've been doing it for over 2 years now, and it's a complete game changer for me physically and mentally. We found Ice Barrel over the years, and because it's an American-made, super high-quality product, they became our product of choice for cold water therapy. And because of that, we became good friends with the founder at Ice Barrel, Wyatt. He swung by the lab for a visit. It was a phenomenal couple days of training. And Wyatt started this company because of the anxiety and burnout he was facing in his own life. And he's dedicated now to helping others find balance and recovery through cold water therapy. And he's an amazing man, and it's amazing what he's doing at such a young age. So stand by for my conversation with the founder of Ice Barrel, Wyatt Ewing. Dude, I'm glad you guys went to Highlight this morning. That's awesome.
It was quite the adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thought we were going to get stuck and stranded. No cell service, but we made it out.
I know there's no service up there. It's a cool little Bozeman thing because you get up there and you kind of feel like you're in Europe or you're in Switzerland and you're like 15 minutes from town.
It's wild. Yeah, it feels like a different world up there.
And you jumped in the lake?
I did. Yeah, it was very cold. I didn't last very long, maybe like 30, 40 seconds, but I got the photo and it's good.
The backdrop up there too, the mountains are amazing.
Yeah, we were going to go last night, but the weather was so bad. So we decided to go this morning and timed it perfectly with the sunrise. So
that's awesome.
It was pretty solid.
There's probably no one up there.
No, just a couple of people who were stuck. That's about it.
People are always stuck up there.
It's wild.
So I drew a Montana mountain goat tag in that basin that you were in this morning, and Nate came with me. We hunted 17 days up there, and randomly the year that I drew that tag, that basin in the month of October got 333% snowpack. So 333% above average normal snowpack fell in the month of October in 2019. And so we had to do that entire hunt off like split boards, backcountry skis, snowshoes. We were in like avalanche conditions all day long.
That's wild.
And yeah, it was like chest deep snow. And in the month of October. It was crazy. It definitely has its own ecosystem up there.
That's insane. Now, did you get a goat though?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like one of the coolest hunts we've ever done because it's kind of a once in a lifetime tag in Montana. Maybe if you're lucky enough, you'd get it twice, but that's extremely rare. So essentially a once in a lifetime tag. It took me 24 years to draw it.
Wow.
And then just to go 17 days in that deep snow and then get a mountain goat on the end of the trip, it was like the ultimate kind of like backcountry experience.
Now, was that with a bow or a rifle?
That was rifle.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting though.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty special, the backcountry we have around here.
No kidding. I love it up here.
And you grew up in Ohio?
No, Colorado.
Okay.
I'm fairly new to Ohio. Moved out there in 2019. So my whole life was born and raised Colorado. Started in Colorado Springs, then up towards Denver towards the end.
Okay.
And absolutely love the outdoors there. Mountain biking, fly fishing, some hunting, not a ton. But yeah, it's great. My family lives up in Wyoming, so I come up to Montana fairly often.
Yeah.
So it's just beautiful country up here.
And what took you to Ohio?
Yeah, manufacturing for our product.
Okay.
I wanted to be close to where we were going to be producing all the ice barrels. So it just made sense to get out of Colorado. We made the decision really fast. The company was really starting to grow. I was ready to scale it exponentially. And my lovely supporting wife, we had a conversation in January, and I was like, hey, we need to get out to the Midwest for manufacturing. And by April 4th, I was boots on the ground and flew her out 2 weeks later. She was 8.5 months pregnant.
Dang.
So it was a wild, like 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many kids do you have now?
So we have 3. That was during our second one. So we
Okay.
have 3. We have 2 girls and a boy.
And how long have you been married?
We've been married for 10 years, together for, I think, 12 years now.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into with you today is I'm super interested now, and you are like the absolute perfect guest for this topic, and the topic is around like personal agency. And we've been talking about it a lot on this show and other shows, and it's so related to the core ethos of everything Mountain Tough believes in, but it's not something historically we've talked about. And we've talked a lot about in Mountain Tough's history, mindset, mental toughness. We're talking about that continuously so that you're ready for anything, you're always ready. And there's this concept of personal agency that's closely related, but also different. And that is kind of defined in my viewpoint as deciding that you're going to lead your own life and design your own life the way that you want to see it go, rather than kind of just letting life lead you. And I love diving into it because like deciding to lead my life is what led to Mountain Tough and where we're at today. But I also know that there are a lot of men and individuals, and male and female, that don't take that direction with their life. And so then they're always in this reactive mindset, reacting to whatever situation comes to them at work or financially, rather than building out a design, building out a plan to reach their goals, and then executing on that plan. And at first I thought it was very connected to mindset and discipline, and it certainly is. Like every successful entrepreneur has some discipline and they have an incredible work ethic, but there's also extremely mentally tough people that are still scared to take these risks to design their own life. So it is this kind of interesting subcategory. And even before we started recording, you were hitting on some of the points that to really take personal agency, you had to kind of buck the system and not really do what society was telling you to do. But let's unpack that for a while with how that's gone for you. And was this something that you knew was part of your DNA from an early age?
Yeah, super interesting question. I think there was a lot of early life circumstances that at the time I perceived as like my back was up against the wall, I was pushed into a corner, and I had to make some decisions about how I was going to respond and lead my life. I got a super early start in life. My dad was in this car accident. It was very disruptive for our family. We went from like this middle class family down into like pretty rough poverty. Mm-hmm. And when I was 9 years old is when I got my first job. That's when I entered the U.S. workforce.
Where were you working?
I worked on this ranch. They would breed horses specifically for racing. But this ranch is where all like the stallions would reside until it was like breeding time. And so they're super aggressive horses. And my brother, I was 9, he was like 10 and a half, 11. He had to drive this like very old F-150 single cab pickup truck. And I had the worst job. And he was driving around this field. I had to sit on the tailgate, and we had these bowls with grain for the horse. Yeah. And they were all stacked up on each other. And I had to drop them, jump back, and run as fast as I could while he was driving. And the horses, like, they were so aggressive. They'd be kicking and rearing up. And
stallions are crazy, man.
They're freaking nuts. Yeah. So I developed this like super intense work ethic at a young age, but also there was a lot of like fear in that job. There was this one stallion who was so mean, they kept him separate. He was in this round pen, and I had to put the food out for him. But the owner of the ranch, the guy he was like a rattlesnake. This guy was mean. And he wanted us to put it in a certain place. And so I remember this one time I walking out there, and I drop it down, and this thing comes charging at me. Mm-hmm. And I fall back. I'm pushing myself back. The owner sees what's happening. The horse is like super aggressive. He literally like pulls me out of the pen, and then he like pushes me up against the pen and just like starts yelling at me like, "Don't cry," like, suck it up, like that kind of energy. So that's where I was like cutting my teeth at a very early age. But I was thankful I had my brother there with me, so that made it all pretty tolerable. We were making $6.25 an hour a piece, and come home, give the check to my mom, and just repeat. We would do work early in the morning, then in the evening, and then school in between.
Man.
So yeah, early start to life.
Hey guys, I want to let you know about Jace Medical. I know a lot of Mountain Tough customers, a lot of Mountain Tough community members, those listening to this podcast are going on big hunts, massive expeditions all over the world. We love seeing that, and we love that you already know that you have to train physically for these trips. You have to train with your weapon. You need to be proficient with your weapon, but an often overlooked area of these expeditions is your personal medication. We actually just got back from a trip like this. The Mountain Tough crew went to Kyrgyzstan, and we needed the peace of mind of a customized medical kit that we could take with us, and we needed it at the exact time for this trip. So we went with Jace. We got our Jace case sent directly to us. We were able to grab it, open it up, throw it in our Kyrgyzstan pack, and take it with us. It gave us the peace of mind that in these international environments, we were going to be covered when it came to infection, GI issues, and anything else we were going to run into overseas medically. So check these guys out, an amazing company. The Jace case is going to come with 5 antibiotics that cover the 50 most common illnesses that you're going to run into anywhere in the world. But additionally, there's 29 add-ons that you can choose to customize your kit. So you can throw things in here like ivermectin, EpiPens, anything you need to customize it personally for you. So check these guys out, an amazing brand, amazing company, very practical for the Mountain Tough community. All you need to do is go to jacemedical.com and use the code MOUNTAINTOUGH at checkout. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. That's interesting because I started with horses too. I started at 12 just cleaning out horse barns.
Sure.
Just about a mile from my house where I grew up. But that was just kind of like normal for us and our family was you like went to work at a pretty young age. And
Yeah.
for me, it was, I knew I wanted a car at 14 when I got my learner's permit. And like at our house, like our parents didn't buy vehicles. It was like, if you want a car, you need to start saving money and it's going to take a while. So you might as well get a job at 12 if you want to buy a car at 14. And
Makes sense.
like that was just a completely normal mode of operation for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I look back on it, even though it was challenging and at times very discouraging, it was incredible for character development, resiliency, and grit. So yeah, I look back on those times. Every time I go through something challenging or hard, I always look back and I'm super thankful for it. You just learn so much in the tough moments than you do at the peaks.
And then if you move forward a few years after that, did you start to realize in your teenage years that you had this knack for entrepreneurship? Yeah.
So I had a really like survivalistic mindset. It was challenging growing up. And there were a lot of what I would consider just like basic needs that, though my parents did the best they could and I loved them dearly, like they weren't getting provided for. So I realized like at a young age, I got to take care of myself. And that made me like highly focused and driven because I knew what I didn't want and I knew how I didn't want to live. So I became very entrepreneurial, very achievement focused. I went out and got like my Eagle Scout. I got a black belt. I played sports in high school. But then I also worked all throughout high school, different jobs along the way, doing anything I could do to make money, right? Mowing lawns, raking leaves, shoveling snow, selling security systems door to door, like anything I could do. I was just like, I was grinding. I didn't make any time for a lot of fun and no time for girls. So I was just like hyper focused.
Just grinding.
Yes.
Do you have regrets around that?
I don't. It's interesting. My brother worked really hard as well, but he then there was a point where he went off to go play and have fun. And I decided like, I'm going to keep working and stay consistent. And I got to a point in my like late 20s where like all of that hard work, I think over the years paid off. And I'm 30 now and I can essentially play the rest of my life. And I got all that really hard stuff done early on. So
it paid off.
It paid off. Yeah. I bought a house when I was 19, got married when I was 20, had 3 kids, bought a couple other properties, and I just did like all the hard stuff in like my teenage and early 20s and worked extremely hard, even building the business. And it all paid off on the back end.
That's wild. Yeah, everyone else was kind of goofing around in that age bracket, and you were grinding, not knowing it was going to pay off, but certainly like hoping that it would. But
yeah, a little bit of delusional mindset in there as well. But I think you maybe have to be a little bit delusional when you're chasing a dream.
Mm-hmm. And you made that conscious decision to not go to college, but to buy that home, which led to like a lot of your financial success. At that point in time, did you kind of feel like you were taking personal agency over your life?
Yeah. So I've always had a really hard time with, like let's just call it authority in general. And I remember even when I was a teenager, like getting these jobs, you would have to fill out your withholding paperwork. And do you remember the days you could claim dependents?
Yeah.
I would always just claim 10 dependents. I didn't have any dependents. And people are like, you can't do that. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because you don't have any. I'm like, but nobody knows that. That's just the amount that they withhold in your paycheck or not.
Yeah.
And I want as much of my paycheck as possible. So it would just like, break every HR person, but they can't change it. It's my form.
You're
so
like, I have 10 kids somewhere.
Exactly. So I would always just claim 10 dependents and keep my paycheck. And then if I had to pay taxes at the end of the year, I would. But I did a lot of things like that. It was like, if you told me this is the way, I'm like, I would challenge it, and then I'd go find another way. If the door is locked, I would break through the window. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I found myself at a couple different points where I didn't want to go the traditional route. And I figured out a way at 19 where I could get the state of Colorado to pay the down payment on the house. And then if I refinanced within 6 months, then I wouldn't have to repay the down payment when I sold the house. So that's what I did.
That's crazy.
And it worked out amazing. So yeah, I bought my first house. It went up tremendous in value within like 2 years, and then bought a second house and did the same exact thing. It was pretty wild.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were kind of fighting against what society and culture was telling all like Americans to do at that age, where it's quite common depending on where you're raised, but the norm is like, go to college, get a degree, get a job with that degree, or go to the military or go to a trade school. But you made that decision, like, I'm just taking this my own path, even though culture, family, friends, community might think I'm crazy.
Oh, yeah, and they did. Yeah, I definitely struggled with friendships growing up. I was like, all my friends were doing one thing, I was doing the complete opposite. So that was challenging. Family did not know what to think of me. I was often made fun of in high school because I was kind of eccentric and also overly confident, and I was terrible at school. So like I looked like a mess, but I was like hyper driven. And yeah, I think there were other like critical moments along the way where I realized like I don't want to trade time and labor for money. I want to trade ideas for money. That was a pivotal moment in my life where I realized like if I come up with really good ideas, somebody will buy them or buy a version of them. Yeah. So then, I mean, I went from like my work wise, like selling security systems to like high-end home remodels, high-end shoes, art, sculptures. Like I worked out of art galleries, things like that. And then I got into corporate aviation. I'd help people buy and sell their jets.
Okay.
And that's what I was doing before I started Ice Barrel. But all along, I was always focused on, I'm just going to come up with the best idea in any sales transaction. And so that way I'm not trading any time or energy for money, but I'm just trading ideas because I can scale ideas a lot faster than I can scale my time or my energy, right?
Yeah.
So that was like a super important moment in my life when I realized that.
That's big, yeah.
Yeah. And then I also realized pretty early on, it's a lot easier to make an extra $10,000 a year than it is to save $10,000 a year. So like in my early days where everyone's like, you need to save, I was like, the best investment is myself. I need to just get really, really good at creating wealth, making money versus trying to like invest and save wealth.
It's hard to save.
It's hard to save and it's hard to invest, especially if you don't have enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like if you're making like $80,000 a year, instead of trying to save an extra 10,000 a year and then you're making 70, it's better to go make 90. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
find a way to make that extra 10.
100%. So there were moments like that where it was just like big shifts. I also like did not fear like debt, creditors, or the IRS. Now I always paid my debts and I paid my taxes, but I think there's like this like fear around those things that like you have to play by the rules or they're gonna get you, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
So that helped me leverage a lot as I started the company.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. That is super interesting because we were talking about this topic yesterday, and certainly one key characteristic around people that design and lead their own life is this unique lack of fear around, I'm not scared to call this person, I'm not scared to knock on this door, I'm not scared to talk to this person. There's no person on this planet that's better than me or higher up than me or smarter than me. It's definitely a separator between the people that are building their own life versus people that are letting life dictate what they do. It's this fearless mindset of, I'll call that guy, or I'll knock on that door, or I'm not really scared of what the IRS is going to say. That definitely is a separator that not everybody has.
Yeah. You got to push the boundaries of comfort, right? There's a lot of things out there, and there's a lot of like guardrails, and just because they're there doesn't mean you can't step over them.
Yeah.
There's a whole world on the other side.
Yeah.
I remember when I started Ice Barrel, I was selling jets at the time, and we had a pretty decent nest egg. And when I started the company, I did fall under the what is it called? Uninformed optimism. I thought that like the company was just going to like explode in 2017, like day one. And then I quickly just ran out of money instead. And I was fairly young when I started the company. I was 22 or 7 years in business. So 22, 23. And I had some cash to start it. But then I also had, the banks were way too nice to me early on. I had way too many credit lines and credit cards. It was like I had access to around $80,000 in like different debt. And I ended up, after I ran out of money, I was like, I'll just use these credit cards. Like the dream, the passion, the vision was there.
It's going.
And I'm like, it's just a matter of time. So I knew I would be able to take care of the debts one day. So I just full sent the the debt, went $80,000 into debt, and then we were completely out of money by 2019. So,
man, crazy.
I had to live with like collectors calling me like multiple times a day for many years. But I committed to, I'm going to rectify this debt. I'm not going to like declare bankruptcy over $80,000. I'm going to let it ride. And it was wild. As the company grew and scaled, I was able to like finally make some money. I think I took my first paycheck in 2021. And then I just, my wife, Abby, and we just stayed super diligent. And I should have used the business money because it was all for the business, but I personally paid off the debt because it was in our personal name.
Yeah, personally guaranteed.
Yeah. So I ended up, it took me like 5 years, but I ended up paying all that debt off, which was incredible. But I also did it after it was like past due and in collections. And then I was able to completely rebuild my credit score. It's like close to 800 now. And so
crazy.
but it tanked all the way down to sub 200. So I was able to scale the company, like bootstrapped it without raising any like significant capital.
Yeah.
Fully get out of debt and everything, right? But like society would tell us like, don't do that. You know, like I'm Dave Ramsey's worst nightmare.
Oh yeah.
But
He
then
would be pissed.
Yeah, exactly. I would. But like we got on the other side of it, completely like unfazed with higher confidence, higher self-respect. And I think it's like things like that. It provides you leverage.
Dude, so you have a high risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Even as an entrepreneur, higher than normal, because I think what you did there is not common at all with entrepreneurs, but stuff like that happens in entrepreneurship. But the really unique thing about your story is that's super hard to do with a wife, and that's super hard to do with kids as well. But managing through like collectors calling me personally, if I'm like a single dude in my 20s trying to get a business off the ground, no problem. But with a spouse, then I'm like, man, I took this thing a little too far.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely moments of like, oh no, what did I do?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally. I say this statement multiple times a week. I also use it whenever I'm like pitching a potential investor, bringing on a partner. But history rewards the brave. And in my office in Ohio, I have a painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware, having no idea what's on the other side. And he's like sitting in the boat. Well, I guess he's standing at the bow of the boat, right in the front. And they're just like paddling through this icy river. And I think this idea, I often reflect in life, like, I don't want to be one of the guys with the oars. I want to be the one standing up, facing the unknown, and doing it with a tremendous amount of courage. Because at the end of our life, like, what else are we left with?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I want to show my kids that, and my wife, that they are capable of very hard things. They're capable of the impossible. You can go to zero, you can go to broke, and you can still rebuild and recover.
Man,
In
I
a
love
fairly short amount of time too, if you stay fully consistent. Now, I don't believe that means like make as many bad decisions along the way, but a lot of times like the path doesn't become clear until you're on the path, right? You can't always see ahead, but as long as you stay consistent on that path, it becomes clearer. So, I think you just do your best and you let go of what's behind you.
I love that. Yeah, the SAS motto is he who dares wins, which is very similar, and it's so true with leading your life. I mean, you gotta take some crazy shots, and a lot of times those crazy shots teach us so many lessons that get us to where we're at.
Yeah.
And it's the same as working out. If I don't work out my legs aren't going to be strong. And if I don't work out my faith isn't going to be strong. And by that faith definition there, it's like these leaps of faith. But if we all have the same faith bucket, and some people are training their faith bucket and some people aren't, then it's the same as like physical training, where that faith muscle isn't going to be very strong.
For sure.
Hey guys, there are a lot of trends out there. And one trend that I've personally found in my own life through experience that has been a game changer is cold plunging and cold water therapy. The benefits for me have been off the charts when it comes to two main categories. The physical inflammation reduction from cold plunging every day has been a complete game changer, but my favorite part of cold water therapy has been the mental aspect, the mental clarity, the stress reduction, and most importantly, the ability to build mental toughness every day in a very simple way by just forcing myself to get in that cold water has been a drastic improvement that is easy, fast, and efficient. I've tried countless different ways to access cold water therapy, from the redneck version horse troughs to building my own cold plunge system off Amazon parts and pieces. Every time I've tried that, it has been a disaster until we found Ice Barrel. Ice Barrel is the most advanced barrel design on the market, and they have the most advanced high-tech chiller on the market as well. I've met the CEO, I've worked out with the CEO, we've had them at the lab. They're a great team, American-made manufacturing, and we're proud to announce that you can now access a discount on Ice Barrel products. All you need to do as a podcast listener is use the code MOUNTAINTOUGH. That's going to get you 15% off all Ice Barrels except the chiller. Again, that's Mountain Tough, all caps, all one word, on icebarrel.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. Did you have any failed businesses before Ice Barrel?
So before Ice Barrel, I just did a 1099 contracting consulting work. Okay. So I totally experienced a tremendous amount of rejection while I was pitching, right? My consulting services.
Yeah.
And I did a wide array of things leading up to the corporate aviation work. So I didn't have any failed product companies, but I went through a tremendous amount of rejection. And one of the mottos in sales that I lived by was go for no. It's the only way that you lose in anything is if you either quit the game. Quitting is really it. It's hard to lose if you don't quit. Mm-hmm. So there is always a yes out there. And a lot of times you just have to get rid of as many no's as possible. Yeah. And so every no, you're just one step closer. It's just like hitting golf balls. So if you want something, just hit as many golf balls, take as many shots as possible. You'll get there. You might have to take more shots than the average person. Yeah. But you will get there.
Yeah. So that sales culture kind of built that into your DNA.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And where were you in what was happening in your life when this concept, this idea, this vision for Ice Barrel first came into your mind?
So I was living in Castle Rock, Colorado. I was working for a company called Front Range Aviation, and we were selling corporate jets, predominantly King Air B200s. We were selling them to the Forest Service or to the government, who was outfitting them with IFR technology, making them look like passenger planes, but it was really just Intel planes over in the Middle East. So that was pretty cool work. But I did really struggle. Again, I mentioned I had this very survivalistic mindset and attitude. And so as I was climbing this ladder of success at a relatively young age, enough was never enough. I was extremely anxious. I was constantly stressed out, feeling like I was going to lose it all at any moment. A lot of the things I learned in childhood were just following me into my adult years. I was not super present. And I would not have said I was a good husband or father. I was very I was just anxious. I was extremely anxious, and I couldn't connect. I had a really hard time, but I was really good at sales. So I could do the hard work and make the money and grind. But you could look at me and you could see right now I weigh about 180 pounds. Then I weighed about 140 pounds. So I looked pretty sick, to be honest.
Tiny.
And I just hid behind my computer and my phone. And
victim weight.
Yeah, seriously. So I walk into this gym to go work out, and this guy literally told me, his name was Joby. He came up to me, worked at the gym. He's like, "You look like shit." And I was like, "That's really rude." And he was like, "You should try cold showers and some breathing exercises." I was super reluctant, but I decided I'll give it a go. I didn't even work out that day. I went home, I took a cold shower. It was absolutely miserable, but I got out of the cold shower, and for the first time, as Jack Johnson says, be where your feet are. I felt like I was where my feet were. I felt so present in the moment. I couldn't explain it. I used to say it felt like that moment when you have a head cold for 5 to 7 days, and then you finally feel good again. Yeah. You're like, oh, I forgot this is what it feels like. Yeah. I think it felt like that in my life. Wow, I forgot what presence felt like. So I became super passionate about cold showers, as silly as that sounds. And I would take 1 to 2 a day. And my anxiety, the depression just started melting away. And I felt like I just started showing up better for the people and the things I loved most.
Man, that's crazy.
So that's how I got started.
All from that Joby guy.
Yeah. Yep. Joby in Castle Rock, Colorado. He was a kinesiologist.
That's amazing.
wild.
He just called you out on that.
Yeah.
And then told you to take a cold shower.
Isn't that cool though? I feel like a lot of times we're so like careful not to offend people.
Yeah.
And I totally was offended. Like when he told me I looked like shit, like I thought that was mean.
Yeah.
But like it was that, I think, ability to be bold and to be courageous and to say it like it is that like helped me in like a tremendous way. Like if
Changed your entire
changed
life.
my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
So you noticed right away the cold showers were putting a dent on that anxiety,
Yeah.
bringing a lot of presence back in your life. And then where did it go from showers to this idea of I'm going to build my own company around this?
Yeah. So I obviously went to the family bathtub to take ice baths. And I would also, in Colorado, we had access to like great rivers and lakes around us, right? So I would go jump in lakes and rivers. And one thing that I realized really early on is whenever I get into a lake, a river, or I'm in the shower, I'm always in this upright position. And so like the practice of cold therapy becomes very meditative, and you have more control over your breath when you're upright. You have, it's easier for concentration. And when I would get in the bathtub, I would be like laying down. And I realized it's like so counterintuitive. You don't ever see an animal or human in nature go into this fight or flight response and then lie down in this rested position.
Man.
So I was like, why do we take ice baths lying down? Like
Yeah.
people using horse troughs and bathtubs. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like when you get into a cold river or lake, you stay upright. You don't try and float in the water. Like when I got in the lake this morning, I immediately like assumed this like upright position.
Yeah, like a quarter squat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a cold therapy product designed for cold therapy that supported the body's natural response in the water. And so that's where the barrel came from. I wanted to make it feel like you're plunging down into the water, and then you can maintain this upright position, make breathing easier, concentration easier, essentially putting you in the most comfortable position in an uncomfortable environment.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes. And so we paired two together in the lab. And that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages, and I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Use promo code TOUGH for a free Turtlebox hat with the purchase of a Gen 2 speaker. The hat must be added to your cart before entering the promo code TOUGH, TOUGH. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. That is so interesting because I got into cold plunging a few years ago, and I've gone through a lot of different redneck kind of hillbilly options. And I did the horse trough for a while. And then when we first started seeing you and seeing your product and seeing Ice Barrel, and then when I got the first one from you, I was like, man, this seems kind of weird to have to stand up in this thing. And I actually, from a counterintuitive standpoint, I was like, it seems weird because I was so used to just kind of laying my head back in that long horse trough. And I was like standing up or kind of like squatting in there seems bizarre. I didn't know if I was going to like it. And then instantly I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. And then Nate put one at his house, and Nate came in the next day, and he's like, and Nate had a horse trough as well. And he's like, I like the ice barrel way better in that kind of like standing position. And I was like, dude, I'm the same way, but I really didn't think that was going to be the case. It was really interesting.
There's so much water, the volume in there. It's like between 80 and 105 gallons of water that your body actually becomes super buoyant. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about it as well is you get the hydrostatic pressure of the water on the body. So it's like much deeper therapeutic benefits than if the body is like closer to the surface of the water.
Yeah.
So that's cool though that you liked it.
And the breathing, I noticed the breathing right away because you are right. Like laying down in a bathtub position, it is not something that makes you think about getting good breath control and thinking about your diaphragm. But in that upright position, like I go to thinking about my breathing and what I'm going to do with my breathing right away.
I mean, it makes sense, right? There's a reason that like the meditative breathwork position is sitting Indian style with your spine straight.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can mimic that, keep the spine straight, it makes breath control so much simpler.
And that's where you really hit a blue ocean with your company, because no one had gone after that upright position.
Yeah. And I mean, in 2017, we were actually the first direct-to-consumer cold therapy company. Nothing else out there existed.
Crazy.
Which was kind of fun. And I realized that early on that it wasn't going to be this way forever. But up until like 2020, there was maybe one or two people trying to like compete in the space. Mm-hmm. But I knew that like we just had a tremendous opportunity to properly educate the cold therapy community that was really small, but also the community that was coming, right? Mm-hmm. So we did a tremendous amount of work. That's really where we spent a lot of our money, was actually writing blogs and pulling together all the cold therapy resources out there just to provide good, solid content on what is cold therapy, how to take an ice bath, time, temperature, the benefits, all that kind of stuff.
And why do you think it has kind of just swept the country by a storm?
Because I probably spent way too much money on paid ads. It's interesting. Cold therapy has been around for thousands of years. It's been a practice in Asia and Europe for a very long time. It's very well accepted over there. America, unfortunately, is trying to push away everything that feels uncomfortable, right? Anything that makes us feel alive and human, mm-hmm. It's like, that's bad, right? So I think we've had this idea that comfort is good, pain is bad. And so we've kind of rejected a lot of the modalities that are very healing and therapeutic, but cause some form of discomfort.
Yep.
Post-COVID is really where we started seeing these practices come back to the West. People started taking their health more serious. They wanted to get preventative with it. So I think that was one of the reasons why cold therapy started to gain popularity. We then started seeing, and we seeded out an insane amount of product mm-hmm. as well. Between 2017 and 2021, we ended up giving away close to $1 million worth of ice barrels.
Just to get it out there.
Just to get it out there. And so there were a lot of people that started talking about cold therapy, just because if you get this massive barrel delivered to your door, you know, like you're going to open up the box. You're going to set it up. Yeah. So that was super impactful for the cold therapy community as well. I mean, that's over 1,000 ice barrels that we shipped out across the U.S.
Man.
And then larger voices started talking about it. Some of the early ones were Dr. Andrew Weil, who has incredible breathwork techniques, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, Paul Check, Laird Hamill from XPT, and then I would say more of the recent voices now that talk about cold therapy, like Rogan and Huberman and Yeah, Osprey, all these guys. So it kind of started like picking up, and then it started snowballing. Now, I will say though, I don't think it has gained mass popularity yet. If you're seeing it on your social media or hearing about it, it's because you're in a niche community.
Yeah.
Right.
Still climbing.
It's still very much climbing. I think we're transitioning from the late adopters to the early majority. I think we're in that transition phase right now. I mean, we just got picked up in retail. We were the first cold therapy company in Costco, Best Buy, Scheels, Sam's Club. So like that's a sign that like it's still super
early. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made a decision along that journey to do American-made manufacturing.
That was a standard, a principle I was going to die on.
Since day one.
Since day one.
That's awesome.
Had to be made here in America. I think when you do that, you can grow a profitable, sustainable brand. I think people fall into this misconception that when you manufacture in the US, you lose your gross profit margins. And that's not true. If you're losing your gross profit margins, you're not manufacturing properly. You're playing by the rules again. Mm-hmm. When we made our ice barrel, it was at the time, it was impossible to mold out of the style molding that we were doing, making the barrels out of plastic. It was impossible to pull the part out of the mold. So to pull the ice barrel out of the mold. And we broke so many manufacturing rules in making this product.
Yeah.
It was extremely hard to get someone to even make the tooling for this product. And then when we had to do our own form of hybrid manufacturing, because contract manufacturers were like, you can't make that. It's impossible.
They wouldn't do it.
And so we found the right people to partner up with, and they were like, all right, have fun, like go figure it out. And that's what we did. It was insane. So I just say all that because manufacturing in the U.S. is super important for building local jobs, building the economy, layering in proper sustainability into your business, and then building for profitability.
Yeah.
I wanted to eliminate as many externalities that could put me out of business. Mm-hmm. And waiting on a shipping container from China is an externality.
Yeah.
Tariffs are an externality, right? So like that stuff doesn't affect my business.
Crazy.
So yeah, I mean, that was the goal. The other one was, I am super cognizant about how I consume as a human. And I hated the idea of filling up our beautiful landscapes with plastic.
Chinese plastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so one of the things I respect the most about what we've done is from the beginning, it had to be recycled plastic. And we've recycled 500,000 pounds of plastic and turned them into ice barrels. A lot of companies, right, they say 1% for the planet. That's easy to do when you're not making profit, and still nobody knows what that means or where that goes.
Yeah.
Like we actually have a direct environmental impact from our business with the plastic we pull out of landfills, factories, and fully recycle them.
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. Yeah, a lot of people just go with the norm, kind of how we started the show, and they know that everyone else is producing overseas, and so they're just going to follow that map and do that. But just like you've done with everything else in your life, just finding a way, bending the rules, figuring it out, kind of recreating that wheel. And now you guys are based in Ohio. How many jobs are produced in Ohio now through Ice Barrel?
So when you look at the way we break it up, we have our full-time employees, and then it's essentially 1099 contractors. Every time you make an ice barrel, right, you're getting paid. So all together, there's over 75 people involved in the ice barrel supply chain through manufacturing all the way through delivery.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And you guys just continue to innovate, continue to change your design, the size of the barrels, and then for the first time ever in company history, now you have the ice barrel chiller.
Yeah. So we started out, the very first product was a wooden ice barrel. I was making them out of white oak, similarly to how you would make a whiskey barrel.
Yeah.
It's a very long story, but that's what we were using. And then we went to making the product just a single wall, plastic ice barrel 400, still available today, still a very popular product because it looks so novel, right? Mm-hmm. The 400. There's nothing out there like it. It's comfortable. It's extremely lightweight. But my goal was to scale that product. I wanted to be able to have sold $10 million worth of ice barrels before I even released another SKU. So that's what we did. So it's like if I can't achieve that revenue milestone, then I'm not doing a good enough job marketing, branding, and telling the story of cold therapy. And so that was the milestone for every product. And so we hit that milestone with the 400, and then we launched the Ice Barrel 300. And that was our first ever insulated cold therapy product, which was really cool. So we made that one more accessible for anybody to get in and out of. It has a seat on the inside, still very lightweight. Really, it's actually one of my favorites. I'm a short guy, so like stepping in and out, it's super easy.
Yeah.
And I love the position that you just are kind of sitting either cross-legged or with your legs up, knees up. It's super comfortable. And then from there, we launched the Ice Barrel 500 almost 7 months later, but it scaled fast. Like we hit that 10 million milestone within, I think it was like 8 months of launching that product.
Crazy.
It was so fast.
Yeah. That is fast.
And then we launched the 500 afterwards, and that's the most insulated cold therapy product ever made. We put so much foam into that thing. It's crazy. It has 2 steps to get in, then a step on the inside, and then you're sitting in just a very comfortable position. Still, it maintains all the design qualities. It's lightweight, fits through a standard entry door, like all that great stuff. And then after 5 years of innovation and hard work, we launched our water chiller. which was really cool.
And it's incredibly high tech.
Very
That
high
thing
tech.
blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It essentially, you set the chiller next to any of the ice barrels, quick connect hoses, connect it right to the ports, and it will circulate and filter cold water on demand. And it has a lot of different ways you can use it. You can have it cold all the time. You can have it cold on a schedule. So for me, I take my ice baths in the evening. And so it's extremely energy efficient because it has a time to temperature engine. You tell it your schedule of when you want to take your ice bath, and it will be ready when you're ready at the end of the day, which is really cool. So you can have multiple schedules. If you and your spouse are on one plunges in the morning, one in the evening, it will reach the desired temperatures per your schedule.
Man.
So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it just is another example of like you recreating the wheel, because so many people have had the pretty standard chiller out there. Also probably like we talked about it before recording, but I've seen like the Amazon type chiller for a few years and seen how people have kind of done the hillbilly versions of connecting them to the horse trough, and the ice barrel chiller it's like a whole new level of technology, touchscreen, just beautiful. And I've been talking about it on this show for years, but I'm just such a big believer in cold water therapy and cold plunging. And for me, the reason is the mental stuff way more than the physical. And you talked about that in terms of what people are seeing and what people are noticing, and why it's kind of swept across the country. And it is that mental side of doing something uncomfortable is so good for you. And a lot of people dive into the physical benefits of muscle soreness and inflammation, and certainly that is out there and that is happening. But a complete game changer for me personally when it comes to like feelings of anxiety, clearness of thought, cognitive function, attitude, optimism. Now it's a tremendous hack for me, because we have the ice barrels at the lab. I have an ice barrel at home. And so I'm either plunging in the morning or in the evening, really not missing a single day, sometimes multiple times a day, because now I know if I get home and I'm thinking about work too much and those thoughts won't shut off, and I know that I'm not going to be present with my kids because the thoughts around the day are just kind of spinning out of control. I know I can just walk downstairs, get in the ice barrel for 2 minutes, come out, and have a phenomenal evening with my family, because it's that big of like a mental reset. And there's not many things like that in life that you can reset your mindset that quickly with no negative side effects, something that like is so natural and normal that I've been promoting for years, that like all my loved ones, friends, family should get on this, and your product just, makes it that much easier, and backing it up with American made manufacturing, which we're a very patriotic brand. It was just perfect. And it's cool how we've been able to, partner together now, and us talking about it on the show for so long, and now Ice Barrel coming along, being a sponsor of the show. It's a cool story how it all happened. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm stoked to be a part. I think you guys are up to some pretty incredible stuff. So however we can help out, we're here for it.
And I appreciate you coming out and supporting us at Tough Fest. We were joking when you came in that you had just had a broken wrist and grinding out that Tough Fest workout with that cast on, rowing with one arm. It's obvious that you share the same always ready, stay dangerous mentality. So there's just so much synergy between the brands, and folks will certainly see the ad on this show, but just in case they don't, we've talked about how Mountain Tough podcast listeners are going to get an exclusive deal on Ice Barrel products. That code that listeners are going to see is going to work for everything but the chiller. But now the Mountain Tough podcast community has an opportunity to get an exclusive discount on Ice Barrel, which is going to be awesome to see that spread across our community.
I'm excited. I mean, any way we can help people get colder and feel better, we're excited to support. And we also have an incredible amount of resources on cold therapy. If you're interested in like the benefits or the science behind it and want to do a deep dive, we have all of that information as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and we're going to you filmed some of those yesterday with Nate.
Yeah.
Some of those will go into the app, which is going to be really helpful to you listeners, the different protocols that folks can take for different reasons. So you'll see that it's common now to go in the cold water longer to achieve different goals. And so some of that you can find on icebarrel.com, and then some of that we'll put in the Mountain Tough Plus app so that you guys can just pick your protocol and go for it.
Yeah, and if anybody was curious, that water was extremely cold. So I did it for you.
Oh, Nate was like, man, he had to film like 3 different videos or 2 different videos in there, just ice cold. It was snowing sideways yesterday.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was a good time.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for coming out to the lab, and stoked for this journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Stoked to be here.
Thanks, Wyatt. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. That was a phenomenal conversation with Wyatt. Remember, every single episode, we're thinking about those golden nuggets. What can we take away and apply to our lives today, right now, this evening, tomorrow, that's going to actually make a difference? The huge one for me is how Wyatt, in the very beginning, talked about he decided not to go to college. He decided to buy a house at 19 years old and become an entrepreneur. So what he was talking about there was not following the path that the world, society, your friends and family are telling you to do, because oftentimes following that path, if you're not following your own heart, can lead to missteps. And this idea of security is just this false illusion. And the real key to innovation, breakthrough, genius, and fulfillment in our lives comes from following what our intuition is telling us to do, not what the world is telling us to do. That's been a big thing with my personal journey, and Wyatt articulated that very well in his. So think about that. Are you following your own intuition right now in your life, or are you just doing something that someone else wants you to do? Big takeaway from Wyatt. What a great guy. I love his American-made manufacturing principle. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Remember, as a Mountain Tough listener, you do get 6 weeks free in the app. That 6-week free code is MountainPod, all one word, all caps, MTNPOD. Just go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, and then you can enter that code for 6 weeks of training on the Mountain Tough app as a podcast listener. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Love you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. We'll see you next week.